Hey, it's Barça here, and in today's video I'm going to be talking about Sergio Aguëro. Back when he signed for Barcelona in the summer of 2021, fans were really excited about him. Though everyone knew he had some injury problems and wasn't at his very best anymore, many did expect him to have a great impact on Barcelona next season. Then, as you all know, he started suffering from heart problems, due to which he had to quit playing football, a real tragic end to the amazing career that he had. But what if he had never suffered those heart problems? What would Barcelona have looked like right now, and how would that season have gone? Make sure to stay tuned as we find out. So, in the summer of 2021, Agüero was signed by Barcelona. At the moment the signing was officially announced, Barcelona's attack for the coming season was looking scary. They had Messi, Griezmann, Agüero, Dembélé, Memphis Depay and Ansu Fati, and Braithwaite. A couple of months later though, as you all know, Messi and Griezmann weren't around anymore, so it was looking like Agüero would have a real crucial role that season, if he managed to stay fit. And after a calf injury that had kept him out for a while, he started to make his first Barcelona minutes in October. He played a total of 5 games that month, but only one as a starter. He scored 1 goal, which was in El Clasico, and it ended up being his first, last and only goal for the Blaugrana. Because in the next game at home against Alaves on 30th of October, he was in the starting 11 but only managed to play for 30 minutes before he had breathing problems and had to go off the pitch. That had eventually been his last ever game as a football player. The real shame is that he just had recovered from his calf injury and was slowly starting to make more and more minutes. Sure, he wasn't the Agüero from 10 years ago anymore, but he did still have the killer instinct to be at the right place at the right time and finish off any opportunity. And apart from him, Barcelona didn't really have a player with his level of finishing, so he was definitely of great use at Blaugrana. That's why if he had managed to stay fit, I think he would have become a starting 11 player for the rest of the year 2021. He wouldn't start all games because of his age, but he would be one of Barca's more impactful players. Koeman would still have been sacked though, because that happened before Agüero played his last game. So also now I think Xavi would have taken over as new head coach. In November, Xavi's first month, the results in La Liga were quite good. But in the Champions League at home to Benfica, Barça drew 0-0, which basically meant they were going to the Europa League. But with Agüero, who would have probably had more match rhythm at this point, that game might have had a different outcome. One of Barca's big problems was that they didn't create enough opportunities, and if they did, they didn't manage to put the ball into the back of the net. So, with someone like Agüero, some of those opportunities might have been finished. And if Barça had beaten Benfica, they would have jumped over them to the second spot in the group and gone through to the knockout stages of the Champions League. Eventually, Benfica had ended up with 8 points and Barça with 7, so the difference was very small. That's the first big difference that Agüero could have made if he had still played at that point. In December, in the away game against Bayern, Barça would have still lost with Agüero, but in La Liga, Agüero might have won the Blaugrana some valuable points. In different games that month, Xavi's team failed to win, and someone like Agüero could have made the difference in 1 or 2 games to win Barça an extra 4 or 6 points. At this point, Xavi had to count on players like Asabdea and Ferran Jutgla in attack, so Agüero would have definitely been valuable. In January, Barcelona did quite well in La Liga but were eliminated from the Copa del Rey. At that time though, Luc de Jong was in the form of his life, so I don't think Barça would have been much better with Agüero in January. But with Agüero, Barça would have had a striker that, even though he was quite old already, still could make an impact and still had the quality in him to perform at the highest level. And consequently, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang might have never been signed. In February and March, in reality, Barcelona were great and managed to reach the second spot in La Liga, with Aubameyang who was in great form. I don't know if Agüero would have been able of doing what Aubameyang did, but it was certainly possible. And it's not like Aubameyang was the only player in great form. Barcelona in general were in a great flow in that period, so also with Agüero instead of Aubameyang, I think Barça could have had a great run of form. But unlike in reality, Barcelona might have still been in the Champions League. Benfica drew Ajax in the round of 8, so Barça would have probably had the same fate. I think that Barça, with the form they had at that point, would have been the favourites against Ajax. And given what they did to Napoli in the Europa League, I do think that they would have progressed to the quarterfinals, as weird as it might sound. When it comes to the final months of the season in La Liga, I think Barça would have held their second place just like in reality, and maybe they would have had a little more points, but I still think that Real Madrid would have ended up on top. In the Champions League, in reality, Benfica had beaten Ajax and drew Liverpool in the quarterfinals. So again, Barcelona would have probably had the same fate. And against Liverpool, they probably would have been knocked out. Maybe Xavi's team would have competed and made it a real close side, but for all we know, this might have become just another big Champions League humiliation. But that still would have been better than exiting the Europa League after a home loss to Eintracht Frankfurt. So I think that in the 2021-2022 season, with Agüero, Barcelona would have still ended up in second place in La Liga. They probably wouldn't have won the Copa del Rey, but you never know. And they might have never dropped down to the Europa League and could have reached the quarterfinals in the Champions League. so Agüero could have made a difference if it wasn't for his heart injury. Though we have to stay quite nuanced and keep in mind that he had been injury prone for quite a while already and wasn't at his very best anymore. In the summer of 2022, he would still have 1 year left on his contract, and I don't think Barça would have then sold him. And Agüero probably would have wanted to fulfill his contract at the club. So we would have Agüero as a striker option for the 2022-2023 season. The big question then is, would Lewandowski still have been signed? I do think so, yes. Because in reality, we had Aubameyang too, who is comparable to Agüero quality-wise, and these two are good strikers but weren't world-class. Barca wanted to have a world-class striker, so they would have still signed Lewandowski. And consequently, Agüero might have been sold last minute like Aubameyang, or he would still be at the club today, but he wouldn't play that much anymore with Lewandowski in that position. He would have been a good rotational player though, so he would still have an impact, and in the summer of 2023 his contract would have expired and he would have left Barcelona at the age of 35. He might have either retired at that point, gone to the MLS, or maybe gone back to Argentina. That's something we will never know. It's quite weird to think about what things would have looked like if Agüero had never had heart problems. Barca's Champions League campaign last season might have been saved, Barca would have done a little better in La Liga, and this season we might have still had him as an option for that striker role. It's all hypothetical of course, and he might as well have suffered many injuries and never really had a great career at Barca, but it's definitely a shame he had to quit football a few months into his Barca career if you think about the time he could have had wearing that Blaugrana jersey. That was it for today's video. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed it, and feel free to share your own opinion on Agüero in the comments down below. Forza Barça, and have a good day.